What's going on, guys? This is awesome here again. And as you guys know, for this last week before Uncharted 4 comes out, we're gonna try to hype ourselves up to Uncharted 4: A Thief's End by looking back at each of the three previous Uncharted games. Today, in this first part to the series, this Uncharted retrospective series, I guess we can call it, we're gonna be looking at the very first Uncharted game, Uncharted Drake's Fortune, released on sometime in November 2007. I'm forgetting the exact date right now, but I know it was in November of 2007 for the PlayStation 3. So right off the bat, I'm just gonna say this right now: Uncharted Drake's Fortune is definitely my least favorite in the Uncharted series. Not that it's a bad game. For one thing, it just hasn't aged well. It's pretty short compared to the other Uncharted games. And there's also, unlike the next Uncharted games, which we're going to cover as the week goes on, there's not too much variety in terms of a lot of the locations and some of the weapons. A lot of the weapons that you're going to be using, a lot of the same weapons throughout this game. For one thing, the 9mm pistol, the thing that looks like a TT33 or something. I think that's what it is. You'll be using that. That's definitely the most prevalent weapon in the game. The second most prevalent weapon in the game is also the AK-47. But the thing with the assault rifles, if it's not a pistol, there's not a whole lot of. You won't find a whole lot of ammo for it like you will in the later Uncharted games. If it's not a handgun. You won't find too much ammo for it. Ammo will be fairly sporadic throughout it. You won't be able to You won't be able to necessarily stockpile ammo, which can probably be a bit frustrating for some people. But for me, it was kind of annoying. But for me, it wasn't a humongous deal. But it definitely was noticeable when you compared it to the other Uncharted games. This is also a little bit of a personal note. This is the only Uncharted game where I did not play the original PS3 version before I played this on the Nathan Drake collection. Both Uncharted 2 and 3 I both had, and I both played a lot on the PS3 and then the original PS3 version. But Uncharted Drake's Fortune was one game that I actually never got on the original PS3, so this was kind of fun being able to play through it, and it is a good game. It does have a pretty good story. It's a pretty simple treasure hunting story, but it's Uncharted. What do you expect? They're mostly simple treasure hunting stories with a lot of personal conflicts and things like that. This game obviously introduced Nathan Drake and introduced Sully and Elena, those very memorable characters. All those characters are very, very memorable. The two villains in this game, Gabriel Roman and Navarro, who are the two main villains in this game. They're somewhat generic and cliche, but you know what? They get the job done, and they definitely come off as definitely a viable threat. My favorite villain in the game is someone who's very underutilized in my opinion. That is Eddie Raja. This dude is awesome, though he's only in a few levels until he dies. Spoiler alert, I guess. He's in like a couple of levels, and then he dies, and then he gets killed. So that's just I think there was a bit wasted potential with him, because I think he could have had some memorable moments, and he does have some memorable moments. He definitely does have some memorable moments, but again, I do think he's very underutilized. I definitely do like him better than the other villains in this game. I'm not saying Gabriel Roman and Navarro were bad villains. It was just they weren't super memorable. They weren't super memorable. Then again, the Uncharted series as a whole has only really had like 2 or 3 genuinely memorable villains in this game, in the entire Uncharted series. Eddie Roger being one of those, like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 villains, but which we'll talk about those villains later in this series as the week goes on, as the week progresses. The graphics. The graphics definitely look good. I know I'm playing a remaster, via the Nathan Drake collection, but for a remastered 2007 game, it looks really good. It looks very appealing. Doesn't look as good as Uncharted 2 or 3, but it's definitely, that's my opinion, but it's definitely a very visually appealing game, both aesthetically and graphics-wise. Something I want to touch on, but now that I'm on the whole topic of remaster, the gameplay itself, you can definitely see its age, even with the remastered. Like, something that Blue Point Games did when they remastered this game is they went in and they touched on a lot of the aiming in this game. They reworked some of the aiming, and even with this improved aiming, its age is definitely still apparent. I mean, I'm sure it's better than what it was on the original PS3 version. Again, this is the only Uncharted game where I didn't play the original PS3 version, but the aiming is still pretty touchy. The aiming is still pretty touchy, and I'm judging this by modern standards, even by modern cover shooter standards, even by modern third-person cover shooter standards. There's still, there's games with better aiming. Uncharted 2 and 3, though, do a lot better. Are definitely a lot better in terms of aiming, but, this is obviously the first game. This is obviously the first game in the series, so there's definitely going to be a lot of noticeable flaws when you compare it to 2 and 3. What else is there to talk about? Talk about the environment. We'll talk about the story. This is a quick side note. This is the only Uncharted game to not feature any multiplayer, which obviously in the Nathan Drake collection there is no multiplayer, even the ones that did include multiplayer like 2 and 3. I just wanted a quick side note just in case anybody was curious. The other really flaws I have with this game is that, like I said, the touchy aiming, its age is definitely, this game's age is definitely apparent. What was something that crossed my mind that I wanted to say? Oh yeah, this game, compared to the other Uncharted game, compared to 2 and 3, it's pretty short. And there are some sections where, there are some levels where I honestly feel that there's not a lot of variety. Like there's one very, think about the later Uncharted games, is that there's a lot of balance and variety in each of the sections of the 3 core gameplay mechanics of the Uncharted games, which are action, platforming, and puzzle solving. There are some levels in this game where I honestly feel like there's a shit ton of it's absolutely loaded with a bunch of action, and then you'll come to another level which is loaded with a bunch of puzzles, and then you'll come to another section which is loaded with platforming. There's definitely not a lot of, in terms of like balancing it out. I noticed while playing through this game, there's definitely a little bit less emphasis on balancing it out. I just wanted to bring that up. That's just something I noticed during my playthrough when I was playing this game. I think I beat this game like twice, but another thing I don't like is what you're seeing right here. There's this fucking jet ski scene. There's like 2 of them throughout the entire game. I really don't like this section. This section is annoying in my opinion because there's tons of explosive barrels everywhere. There's tons of guys shooting at you, and the only thing you have to fight back is with this rocket launcher, which can definitely get the job done. And on top of it too, remember that touchy aiming I was talking about like a minute ago? The controls for the the steering and the basic controls for the jet ski are also very touchy, which makes it very hard to navigate through these really narrow corridors, these really narrow waveways, I guess what you can call them, and then having to dodge or blow up these explosive arrows is just really, really annoying. I had to play this section on easy because it was so fucking annoying. Because it was just so fucking annoying. I fucking hate this section. I really, really hate this section. Like, I really do. This section is annoying and is without a doubt the part I hate most about fucking this game. And this is a great game too, but God, I hate this. There's another one of those sections with the jet ski where you're like going up a river and it's just, and you have to go up waterfalls and shit. It's just so fucking annoying. There's also, in terms of the enemies, there's not a lot of variety in terms of the enemies. Like, some will have assault rifles, some will have pistols. A lot of the enemies are very samey, but you know what? That's just kind of a nitpick, in my opinion. I just wanted to bring that up. It's just kind of a nitpick, but I don't really mind. But you know, I just want to bring that up just because I gotta be critical of this game. I've pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about, really. Uncharted Drake's Fortune is definitely a great start to the Uncharted series. It's definitely a great start to the Uncharted series for the very first Uncharted game, and for Naughty Dog's first photorealistic, serious game. Because this was like their first, like, you know, photorealistic, serious type game. Because before this, they were doing things like Jack and Daxter and Crash Bandicoot and things like that. You know, for the first time doing one of these types of games, it's really good, and I don't think they could have started out much better. And they really stepped it up with Uncharted 2, which Uncharted 2 we will be covering in the next part to this series. We'll be covering that on Thursday. We'll be covering Uncharted 2 Among Thieves on Thursday, and then obviously, like I said a couple days ago in another video, on Saturday we'll be covering Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception, which you know, we'll talk about that once that video comes. So please like, favorite, comment, subscribe. Please tell me in the comment section what you think of Uncharted Drake's Fortune, and just like I said, please like, comment, favorite, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. I'm signing out. See you guys.